Describe in single words only the good things that come into your mind. About your mother?
My mother?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about my mother.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Have you ever been in an institution? Cells.
Cells.
Do they keep you in a cell? Cells.
Cells.
When you're not performing your duties, do they keep you in a little box? Cells.
This causes it. This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves.
You are listening to the High Tech Low Life podcast, a cyberpunk media retrospective. High Tech Low Life contains themes and language not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back, everybody, to the High Tech Low Life podcast with your hosts, Eric and Josh. I'm Eric.
I'm Josh, and I'm gonna do a dramatic voice the same way.
Thank you. I have to get hype because I have to act like we haven't been recording for 2 hours. But through the magic of movies, we are starting afresh.
Yes, we are.
Is this a movie?
No, it is not.
Nope.
We're gonna talk about a novel, and we're gonna talk about that novel with a guest.
Yes.
Hey, comrades.
Our guest, hailing from the Great White North.
Yep.
Is that what they call Canada?
Yes. Where it is August
Sure.
and in the 60s.
Yeah, it's very
Okay,
fun.
that's got to be nice.
You know him as Mike the Sailing Guy, and frankly, so do we. It's
Yeah.
Mike the Sailing Guy.
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good.
Have you just talked about a book for 2 hours and also a movie that we're
Yeah,
not going to drag into this?
There's going to be a substantial amount of stuff on the cutting room floor this episode. I look forward to it. But
I feel like we really should do a fucking Patreon episode of just bullshitting.
Any guest we've had on the show in the past or in the future that wants to have a Patreon episode of us just fucking around, or maybe all of them at once,
That'd be a nightmare. Great, let's do it.
Down to do it. Because everybody
yeah.
that has ever interacted with us on this show is cool as shit. So,
Yeah.
And I love them all. Yes, so we're here. We're talking about When Gravity Fails. We're going to do a rundown. We're going to get into the plot, the characters. We're gonna dive deep. We've already given a synopsis that took 90 minutes, and now we're going to actually
Synopsis?
No.
not a
No.
synopsis, an overview,
Context. Yeah.
Context.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
No, absolutely not a synopsis.
No, not
No,
a
no.
synopsis.
Zero
Nobody
synopsis
learned
will have.
anything about the book.
We've set the scene.
Yeah, how about that? That's good.
Yep.
Before we do that, we're going to do the usual things we do because we have to.
Hey, actually, after my recommendo from last week, even though I've got like 5 books on my pretty immediate to be read pile, I was considering going back and rereading, of all fucking things, the LA Quartet. Yeah, the James Ellroy books. Which is a great connection to Mike the Sailing Guy because
It's another book
it's
series.
another one that I mentioned at some point on Creek of the Week, and he jumped in to say something about.
Yep.
I mentioned it last episode, but Mike's tastes run weirdly parallel to Josh's and mine. I mean, I share Josh's taste because a lot of my taste comes from him recommending things to me. But and it's just strange how many of the things. Mike, do you just read a lot and watch a lot?
I don't actually watch that much anymore. As far it feels like I read way less, but my beach, my holiday, my vacation reading this time was actually Lee Child. Right, I started restarted the Jack Reacher ones, and that's just because I really liked the TV show last year.
I never watched the TV show. It's been on my oh, I should get around to this because I heard it was good, like a good adaptation.
Well, I mean, it actually was a really good. It actually was a really good adaptation of Killing Floor.
And the guy is sufficiently gigantic.
Yeah, the guy is man. I mean, he's actually a guy who. How shall I put this? I noticed when he first appeared on national TV, and then followed him as he did a couple other TV shows, including, Garabar. No. Filming a TV show in the village I live in, called Blue Mountain State, which I don't recommend to anybody except that it was fun to watch. Go, oh, they're over there on Lakeshore. Oh, they're over there at John Abbott. Oh, they're over there
cool.
in front of Annie's pub. So that was just kind of fun. But anyway, yeah, he is phenomenally cute, good looking, blonde, blue eyed, 6'4", 200, and now, God, he said that he put on 30 pounds of muscle, and he was pretty muscled beforehand.
He is a giant guy.
Bit.
Yeah, as compared to
as Reacher is.
Yeah. That was like, okay, I read the Reacher novels. They're fucking trash. I mean,
they're fast. They're fast.
Yeah, they're very, they're very effective at like, hey, I'm going to burn 300 pages on this giant monster, theoretically human, who is solving a mystery and is going to beat the shit out of some people.
Yeah, and very clearly he can beat the crap out of any human being on Earth.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Because he's bigger. He's bigger than everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I mean, it would have been nice if they'd given him a weakness, but I guess not.
I don't see
why
anyway,
that's been fun. Problem. And the other stuff that I've been reading, through is a series of actually mystery novels set in New Orleans, by a guy named Greg Heron. So it's actually set in sort of gay New Orleans, right? So there's stuff in the French Quarter, there's stuff uptown, which is where I lived.
What's the first book in that?
It's an Interview with the Vampire.
I want to say the first book is Bourbon Street Blues.
I have read that. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So Mike and me are on the same page.
I'm amazed that you read it. It's pretty niche. But anyway.
Okay.
So that's my pop stuff recently.
That's pretty good. List of recommendos.
Yeah. Listeners will notice a definite trend in what I watch and read.
Listeners who have been with us for a while and have seen your various outings on our show will probably recognize a trend.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the fact that I'm pretty for somebody who is going back 200 episodes or thereabouts, distressingly straight. I'm pretty Catholic in my reading.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is I use that phrase. I don't remember in exactly what context. Like, I'm pretty Catholic in that. To my wife the other day, and she was like, "What does that mean?" Like, oh, is that not a thing anymore? Okay, don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, the new groovy word is eclectic, but yeah.
It means worldwide-ish. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So
let's talk about When Gravity Fails.
The actual plot of When Gravity Fails. Josh, this is where you jump in because you've taken extensive notes, and I don't want those notes to be in vain.
I don't know if extensive is the right terminology, but sure. Okay, so When Gravity Fails. As you've listened to the last episode, you know a little bit about Marid Audran. He is a fucking shitbox. He's just a scumbag piece of shit.
That's actually before we even get into it. I'm talking again. A lot of the problematic aspects of this book. How much can we attribute to the book, and how much can we just attribute to Marid Audran? Is he supposed to be? Did you just belch into the fucking mic? Am I have to edit that out?
What? I don't think so.
Okay. It was Josh.
I mean, I'm 5 in.
I heard it clearly.
It's possible. I don't remember it.
Yeah, I would actually kind of want to argue with you a little bit, and maybe betray some of my kind of Marxist leanings, but
oh no, I mean, we don't accept that on this show.
Yeah, we don't accept that on this show. But no, I mean, what you've got here is you've got a group of people living in the Budayeen who, I mean, when you talk about low life, you really are talking about low life, right? These are people who are really trapped by circumstance.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
I mean, I would describe him, rather than being just a complete, douchebag, right? Is that no, he's somebody scrambling, like everybody else in the Budayeen. He's scrambling. He is hustling.
Yeah.
Right.
He is just trying to make a fucking living.
I identify with him in that regard as someone without, I don't know, like an education or like any real prospects in life. That's kind of how I get by, scrambling and hustling.
I think Mike's use of hustling is exactly correct. I mean, it's just trying to get the next fucking score so that you can make rent for next month.
So you can, so you can make rent and buy food, right?
Yeah.
And
drugs
and drinks
and drinks. Yeah.
So let us never underestimate the amount of drugs that are taken in this book, please.
The amount of drugs that are taken in this book are prodigious. So, yeah, but if you're expecting a white knight, you're not going to find him.
He's not that.
Yeah, this is far from that. This Marid is very much spends the entire book in the first chapters of Neuromancer, as far as scrambling for cash.
Yeah,
and I don't know, pussy and drugs and just trying to make it work out.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's another problem.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that because there is actually a lot of kind of inner thought, and but he's a man who keeps trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I think
he really actually does care about morality, right? And finding.
Yeah, he does.
But he's just in a world where none of that's possible.
Yeah, he very much, going back to a conversation we had in the previous episode, he is very much a Sam Spade type, where he has a clear morality, but he is struggling to make that function in a world which doesn't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right.
So, and then in fact, I mean, what you find are the people who are throughout the book, right? You have the people who sort of end up being bad guys. Okay, with one exception. The people who end up being bad guys are also just trying to make it through, and they've just sold out to Friedlander Bay or to somebody else.
I would say two exceptions, but for the most part, nobody's really, with two exceptions, are really bad people. Mm-hmm. Three exceptions.
Well,
boy, I am interested in this list of exceptions.
Well, I mean, there's a problem here, right? Which is, one of the key things that makes this book cyberpunk is that people can jack in, right? Mm-hmm. And they can jack in either a Mahdi or a daddy, right? And a Mahdi,
Mahdi's and daddies,
gives them a different personality, right? Yes. So you can jack in.
It's amazing we never got into that in the first episode.
That is literally the very first line of my notes.
Yeah. Is that and the way to think about daddies is that daddy is for add-on, right? So Mahdi's give you a completely different personality, right? So that if you jack in, for example, a James Bond Mahdi, you become James Bond.
Right.
Right. You and
jack in a Leonardo DiCaprio Mahdi, you become Leonardo DiCaprio.
You become and part of this is that since you actually become that person.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Not a facsimile of that person. You become that person. It's been their
you become that person.
Has been recorded.
Yeah, and the personality has been recorded onto the Mahdi.
Although the few times that our narrator uses a Mahdi, they well, I guess we can get into it later, but they kind of show that your regular personality is still there, kind of like hovering in the background. It was
in the back,
yeah, to some extent.
And there's some question.
Yeah,
although there's some indication that if you wear a Mahdi long enough, you can lose yourself.
Yeah,
and I think some characters in the book have.
That happens, and then you have the daddies, right? With daddy for add-on. Where you plug in a legal daddy and all of a sudden you know the law, right? You plug in a French daddy,
you know
and all of a sudden
Arabic.
you can speak French. Or you plug in an Arabic daddy and you speak Arabic.
And that's a pretty standard cyberpunk staple. I know it happens. Yeah. They have it in a lot of cyberpunk stuff.
Yeah. So the big thing is.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no. The big thing in this book is the Mahdi, right?
Yeah.
Which again. Hey, look at altered carbon.
Right.
Yeah.
Where essentially what you do is you download somebody else's personality. The difference there is as soon as you jack out the Mahdi, you return.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're you again.
Yeah. The interesting thing about this book is that the only Mahdis that we have real perspective on are fucking fictional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, except for Honey Pilar.
Yeah.
We still he never jacks in a Honey Pilar or anything though.
Yeah.
He only the old detective.
Honey Pilar is a porno star, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly.
But the only one that Marid actually jacks in is the old detective, right?
Nero Wolf. Yeah.
Yeah, Nero Wolf. He doesn't actually jack in any other.
Oh yeah, he does.
And
he does.
The one that we're mostly concerned with is James Bond, a fictional character.
True.
Yep.
All right, Josh, I need you to get through your notes.
Okay. So at the beginning of the book, Marid Audran is hanging out in a fucking bar. See, I've never been good at the French pronunciation. I can get close enough.
Audran.
It's a really typically normal French name. It's just like a dead normal French name.
Yeah, I can get close enough to have people who are doing lithics.
Audran. We'll call him Audran.
All right.
There's a lot of French people in lithics.
Yeah. I will stop.
I can get close enough to where they understand me.
Marid Audran.
Marid Audran. Marid Audran is hanging out in a bar where his girlfriend works. His girlfriend is Yasmin. She is, as is repeatedly stated in the book, a transsexual, which is not necessarily the terminology we'd use today. And I think that runs throughout the book. We discussed this a little bit in the first episode, but I think I think Effinger was, in a very conscious sense, being as woke and progressive as was possible in fucking 1986 when he was writing this, because it came out in 87.
Yes, as someone who tries to keep up with the quote woke, which is a word I hate to use because it's been corrupted by the bad guys, but who tries to be as thoughtful as possible, it gets a little cringe at parts for sure. But I don't see any malice or transphobia from the point of the author. I think he was just working with the terms and ideas that they had at the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like if he wrote that book today, the terminology would be very different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being too kind. I don't know.
I personally,
I think that's true.
As a fucking cis white male, I personally agree 100%. it doesn't feel like there's any at all malice in this. And it's just because, I mean, I read this in 1994 or something like that. And it was insanely progressive at the time.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, well, the key thing is that if you look at Yasmin, right, his trans girlfriend, she is never treated as anything but a woman.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, absolutely.
One time.
Well, okay. He does during a fight, he says some stuff.
Yeah.
But they like Effinger draws it out or makes a specific point of Marid thinking that was like the worst thing he could have said.
Yeah.
She'll never forgive me for doing what I did.
She'll never forgive me. Yeah. And spoiler, she does.
She doesn't forgive him for everything, though.
No, does not forgive him for everything. Reading it from today, there are some of the terminology that's used, right? The F word, referring to gentlemen of a homosexual nature, such as myself. The F word gets thrown around. Gets thrown around a couple of times.
Homosexual nature.
Yeah, you like that?
I do. I like it a lot, actually.
That gets thrown around a lot. The N word gets used a couple of times.
Yeah,
yes, it does.
The only time I can remember it really right now is that a reference to himself.
Yeah.
There's reference to other people too.
There's a couple others.
To Cheery. To Cheery.
I can say this because it's a lot more visceral to hear it on an audiobook. I've both read this book and I've listened to it on an audiobook.
Yeah.
It's a lot more problematic in an audiobook than it is reading it.
I fucking bet that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, the N-word is used like maybe 3 or 4 times.
3 times?
Sure.
4 times?
Once,
I believe it.
Once definitely in reference to himself and a couple in reference. Usually it's not ever from the point of view character. It's never from Marid like saying it about people. If I recall, it's always
some asshole. Yeah,
Ocking. I believe Ocking uses it quite frequently.
Yeah,
the police chief or the police guy.
And that actually intrigued me for a while. Why is the police chief called Ocking? But it's a Danish name. But it actually does come up later that he's an immigrant.
Yeah, he's
/ refugee from, I guess, Denmark fell apart.
Sure. Why not? There aren't any bigger states that could fall apart.
Right.
Denmark being the size of roughly my hand.
Yeah. But, so I think that is something that you've got to kind of brace yourself for in reading it, because we're not used to anything. I have absolutely no doubts that if Effinger were writing it today, the word would not appear.
Oh, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I very specifically remember reading this in the 1990s and being just blown the fuck away about and I didn't even have the language to say, holy shit, this is the most progressive goddamn thing I've ever read. Like in terms of sexuality and stuff like that. But
I mean, I had the same sense, being a queer guy reading it in Montreal in the 80s, which Montreal, very open, more than tolerant city.
Sure.
But it was like the first time I'd seen something written by a cis het guy where trans people were actually treated with complete and total dignity. They were just treated as it was just a fact.
Yeah, they're just fucking people.
And Marid has a group of 4 friends that he hangs out with. He has a group of four guys who hang out drinking and stuff. 2 are queer. And it's kind of
just casually, not even
just
really
casually,
an important part of the character.
Yeah.
I will say, just to play devil's advocate a little,
ooh, I'm the devil's lawyer. Go ahead.
I love the devil. Marid makes an important point of every time he's talking about a trans woman, pointing out that it's not a real woman. He the word real comes up
the
way
word
more
real
than
comes up. Yeah,
than it
you'd
should.
like. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I mean, the real prejudice within the novel, though, isn't against trans people or cis people, right? There is a real prejudice against what they call Debs, which are people who are transitioning or who have decided not to transition.
Yeah.
Right. And that really is.
Mike, you might check the
That's
position
grating.
of your microphone. We're
That's
getting a lot
grating.
of interference.
Okay, let me try that.
Is your mic good? Okay. I don't know, it felt like it was rubbing against something.
Yeah, it was. Okay.
Yeah, the Debs, they do seem to have.
It's not a big point. It's not a big point in the novel, right?
But it is brought up at one point. I remember.
If you're paying
it's brought up.
Yeah. Like Debs are like transitioning that haven't had the surgery, so they are
or the modification, whatever the modification.
The modifications,
is.
Yeah. So they're in transition.
So you do get one character who admittedly is a douchebag saying, they should make up their mind, be one or the other, right?
Right.
Not our hero, but somebody else. But I mean, I really want to say that for the time, just as a queer guy reading this, it was mind-blowingly pro-queer. Just mind-blowingly pro-queer.
I fucking bet. I mean, like I said, in the mid-90s or mid to early 90s, it was for a straight guy like, oh, there are gay people in the future. And like at the time, transsexuals, sort of like I've heard people say related to Uhura in Star Trek, like, oh, there are black people in the future too.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
This isn't something that's going to be corrected or, corrected, quote marks, heavy quote marks.
I mean,
like,
you really have to wait for another 15 years before you get, another writer who regularly includes, trans and queer characters.
Oh, tell us who that is, Mike.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to block on names.
Okay.
But in the beginning of the aughts, and then there's some other stuff that's going on that I don't want to talk about.
Okay.
You really don't get it, right? You really don't get anything.
Yeah. It's you get.
Well, you brought up on our previous show how dry the beginning of the aughts was for queer content in media in general.
Yeah. I mean, there was
something that since you brought it up on Creek of the Week, I've noticed, like going back and going over old media. It's absolutely clear.
Yeah. So that you got queer characters on Dawson's Creek and a couple other shows at the time, and then anything that began after that, even by the people who made Dawson's Creek, right?
Yeah.
Where are the queer where were the gay people at One Tree Hill? Where were the gay people in God? What was the one that Berlanti did that was set in Colorado? Whatever that one was.
Yeah,
it was a big hit.
Yeah,
and then you think about like
ever cool, evergreen, evergreen,
Everwood,
something like that.
Yeah.
Evermore.
So anyway, but
there was a dearth.
So anyway, one of the things is that you're introduced just from the beginning. You are introduced to Marid goes and goes to the bar where his girlfriend works, and it's just kind of casually dropped that she's trans, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like not a big deal, right? Yeah. And Chidiga's bar.
This book is one of those things that I think if an older, like Gen X or elder millennial trans person read it, they would probably think it was pretty progressive. But if like a young, early 20s trans person read it, they might have a problem with the book. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I would like to speak to a trans person who's read the book.
Because that kind of, transsexual, right? Because it is sort of, it's trans, but trans means transsexual. Right, it's very medicalized, right? Which is not how we think about being trans now at all. And of course, there's no such thing as non-binary, right? Which I can also tell you that in the 1980s, nobody thought about anything as being binary. As being binary. That really didn't hit until the 90s. and begin, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the trans people that I know, turns out they have less than zero fucking interest in listening to me and my fucking straight buddy blather about cyberpunk bullshit.
What the fuck is wrong with them? Come on, it's good shit.
We're
spitting gold here.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you do have to set it in the time, right?
Yeah.
And for the time, it was mind-blowingly progressive.
Yeah.
All
right.
Josh, continue on with the actual story.
Okay, so we're at page 2.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, so Marid is having a meeting with a guy named Bogatriev, who wants Marid to find his son. And also, like, over in the corner of the bar, there's this guy who's clearly running a fucking James Bond Mahdi, who's got the classic James Bond bullshit of a little S, of a hair snaking down his forehead and wearing a tux and impressing some, I think they're ladies from the Republic of Lorraine, if I remember right.
Yeah.
French. Which is a really good and early indicator that, like, oh, Europe has balkanized.
Yeah, Europe is splintered.
And this guy's, like, having a chat with these ladies and super impressing them. They're clearly fucking tourists. Bogatriev wants Marid to find his son. And
this is a classic Shadowrun beginning, by the way.
Oh, it absolutely is. This guy is kind of shady, and he's like, hey, I need you to find my son. He came to this country. I don't know what happened. Blah, blah, blah. And he's about to pay out, and then he's shot pretty randomly by the James Bond guy.
Well, before that, Marid sees that these girls are being hassled by the James Bond guy, and he thinks this is just like another basically junkie with a Mahdi in, so he escorts the James Bond guy out of the bar, kicks him out, goes to do his business dealings, and then James Bond comes back into the bar and shoots the dude he's talking to in the face.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much
that's the inciting incident.
Yeah, that's the inciting incident of the entire fucking book, I guess.
Yeah, it is a book.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is
you nailed it. It's not a movie. Not
Thank
a TV show.
God. Okay, I was about to get real confused. Okay, so then he's like, well, what the fuck do I do? Continues getting drunk and fucked up. And then
was this in Chitty's bar?
He's in Cherry's bar.
Chiri, or Chidi, as my guy pronounced it, is cool.
Yes, pretty cool.
Fucking cool.
Some sort of sub-Saharan African. I don't remember if it said specifically what.
She speaks Swahili. That's all we know.
Swahili. Okay. Yeah. Has some cool secret liqueur. And some cool secret liqueur mixed drinks.
Yeah. Yep. So Marid basically hangs out in 2 bars. One is Chitty's bar, and the other is what's the dude's name?
Frenchie's?
Frenchie's bar, where his girlfriend works.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would prefer hanging out in Cherry's bar.
I mean,
well, Cherry's way cooler.
Cherry's way cooler than Frenchie.
I don't disagree, although I do find, regardless of my issues with my former advisor, I do find that specific French aspect to be fun. Does that make sense?
What, like you mean with Frenchie himself?
Yes. The Marseillaise, that type of French aspect.
All right, but I don't know. I just really like Cherry.
I agree, but
I agree.
I'm not going to say that Frenchie is sucks or anything.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Continue.
So he goes home He is woken by Lieutenant Hawking.
Another big character in the book.
Yes. As Mike said, it's a Danish name, which immediately struck me the first time I read the book, because the first chapter does a really good job of establishing that this is very much an Arabic Muslim, even if it's not Arabic, it's Arabic speaking in some sort of, version of Arabic.
Yeah.
Hawking struck me as, that's not an Arabic name. So he gets woken by a call from Lieutenant Hawking. Sorry. My monitor is about to turn off.
He describes Hawking as like the only good cop in the city, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable.
I don't know if that plays out in the later text. Not a big fan of Hawking personally, but he seems to prefer Hawking to all the other cops that he has dealings with.
Well, I think,
yeah, exactly.
Yes, 100%.
Although I really, I'm blanking on his name. The other cop as a character, I really fucking like.
Hajar.
Hassan. I love scumbags, dude. I cannot get enough scumbags in TV shows.
I think, the thing that keeps me coming back to Hawking, or in concept, is that I really feel like the reason that Marid keeps coming back to Hawking is because Marid is half French.
Okay.
Yep.
And Hawking comes from Europe and is European civilization. Even if European civilization doesn't mean as much in 2175 as it does in 2023, he is coming back to the concept of European rule of law, even if he knows it's, even if obviously it's fucking stupid and wrong and completely out of place in North Africa.
Yeah.
Still.
I think that is his attraction to Hawking.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Mike? Or do you read that the same way?
Yeah. I mean, I saw that. I would have put a slightly different spin on it. You're close to yours, which is they're both outsiders, right? Right.
Yes.
Hawking is a foreigner,
yeah.
Right, and he's Maghrebi, right? So they're both from the outside.
Great. Yeah. Okay. I feel that is I think that's also a very reasonable interpretation. We get a cool walk through the streets. Friedlander Bay is mentioned. He runs shit. He's somewhere north of 200 years old. He's just sort of God in this, I don't know, 40 odd square blocks that the Budayeen encompasses.
Yeah, he's definitely the mafia don, right?
He's the Godfather. Yeah,
he's the Godfather.
Yeah. We get introduced to his girlfriend, Yasmin. This is where we get into a lot of the trans and prostitution talk. Just a note, sex work is work.
Can I butt in here and say
absolutely.
That one of the problems I have with this book, I understand that from the time it was pretty progressive as far as trans issues and gay issues, and it was pretty good with the Muslim stuff. But I feel like this had some pretty strong misogyny going on. Like this, Effinger could not describe a woman without getting super horny about it. It got awkward at points, especially when I have a guy reading it into my ears.
Okay.
I don't know. I felt the misogyny fairly strong at some parts, and I feel like it needs to be called out to be fair. You know what I'm saying? Because we're three dudes. We're three, cishet white dudes.
No,
there's no women representation here.
Not 3 cishet white dudes.
No, sorry, that's wrong.
Cis and white, I will own.
Yes,
cis and white. Yeah, I'm also a few cocktails in, but
don't worry about it.
You know what I'm saying? There's no female representation here,
Right?
And I felt like this book got a little creepy at some points, especially when he's describing women.
I think
it definitely has the male gaze, right? In that,
Yeah,
male gaze.
in
Yeah, that's
that
definitely a
feminist
way to say
sense.
it.
Yeah, I think that's totally fucking fair. I mean, 100%. I can't argue with that. No reasonable human could,
even by 1986 standards, which that was popular. It's probably always going to be popular.
It was popular, and it's also like just an unbelievable trope in hard-boiled Chandler. Sorry,
I get what you're saying,
Josh. What's the word I want for Chandler and Hammett and all those people?
Noir.
I keep wanting to say noir. Noir. Okay,
you say noir so much better than us.
You do. I know what you're saying.
I think hard-boiled and noir.
Hard-boiled.
Hard-boiled detective fiction. Thank you. Yeah, that's also something super duper common, and sort of that Chandler-esque thing, which is all throughout here as well. But yeah, is that progressive?
The first thing I noticed when she came through the door was her legs.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I just feel like it needs to be pointed out to be fair, because our views as men reading this are probably going to be pretty different from a woman reading this book. They might be a little bit more creeped out by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. He does not discuss men in the same way, right?
He does not. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
And he describes every woman that comes into Marid's orbit.
I think that is very fair. It's another one of those things that was like completely fucking normalized in terms of 1987 science fiction and fantasy. And it's not fucking good.
Nope.
But we should recognize that as, okay, it's a product of the time. We shouldn't forgive it entirely, but we should take that into account.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would recommend this book to a woman in a different way than I would recommend it to a man, like gay or straight.
Yeah,
I would be like, I would have different words to recommend it to a woman.
Yeah, I think that's very fair and reasonable.
Yep.
Thank you. My work here is done. If you need me, I will be in the other room. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Anyway, go on, Josh.
Okay, so he gets in the very minor, one of many throughout the books, throughout the 3 books, and I don't know what, a quarter or a third of a book is in the last compilation of Effinger's work. That's Marid's stuff. He's constantly getting in fights with Yasmin, and constantly making up with her and going back, and it's just a back and forth thing. He gets into a minor fight with Yasmin. Don't worry about it. Then gets a call from Nikki, his implied ex-girlfriend, who is also a trans lady. She wants to cut loose of her pimp, and makes a deal with Marid to negotiate with the local, and by local I mean within, like, say 6 square blocks. Big man Hassan. With her pimp to, kind of get her free.
All right. Now, Hassan, I know he's a bad dude. Like, don't get me wrong, he's bad in every way a person can be bad. But I fucking love Hassan. He's one of my favorite characters in the book. I love bad guys, though. But Hassan is great.
But it's also one of the things about Effinger and the way he writes. He really does write characters. Including the women characters, right? Yasmin is a character. Nikki is a character. Chidi is a character.
Absolutely. Like,
Right.
Nikki is an amazing character for the amount of actual screen time she gets.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Marid ends up meeting up with Nikki, her pimp Abdullah, and Hassan to make a deal to get Nikki.
Say her pimp's name again.
Abdullah.
Yeah, my narrator pronounced it very differently from that.
Oh, how'd he do it?
I can't remember honestly, but it's not that. Go ahead.
Thoughts, Mike?
No, I have to see how it's written.
Yeah. I want to say it was ABD. I mean, it's possible I spell corrected myself to death. ABDOULELYE.
Abdullah, I think is how he said it. Yeah, it's Abdullah is what he said.
Okay, sure. Yeah, fair enough. Not an Arab speaker, am I? So there's a nice formal meeting, as you do with organized crime people and pimps.
As you do.
You know. Nikki's going to pay Abdullah $3,000 the next day by noon to be free of all the things he's done for her. And then she'll be able to go wherever and do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great, and it all works out. Hassan is kind of he's a fun guy, but at the same time a creepy guy.
He's an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's taking a cut from this exchange just by I don't know why, just because he's in the room with them.
That's because that's how it works. Don't worry about it.
I know.
Yeah. You got everybody's beak has to get wet.
Yeah, exactly.
That it's
beak wetting.
It's bad that a woman has to pay to get out of like basically a sex contract with her pimp. But then there's this fucking guy who's just like, and I of course get $5,000 for.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I love Hassan.
Yeah. Hassan is obviously a creep. He owns a American Boy. Which I think it's really interesting that it's noted that it's an American boy.
Yeah.
The only American in the whole the only American in the whole book.
Yeah, and it comes up like 7 or 8 fucking times. Yeah.
Well, he doesn't have a name. He's just the American boy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's Abdul Hassan. He is the slave of Hassan.
That's right. That's right. The slave of
Hassan. He really
Hassan.
likes Marid.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting point that, like, if Effinger was alive today, I would love to ask him exactly what he was trying to get at with that.
I agree.
So it turns out that after Marid wakes up the next day after the negotiations with Hassan and Abdullah, he wakes up the next day and gets the living shit kicked out of him by the Black Widow sisters, who are currently, one of them is Nikki's girlfriend. And
yes, we had met them previously, which I don't think we discussed on. When Marid goes to see Nikki, he is introduced to one of the Black Widow sisters. Which one?
Tamiko,
something like that. Tamiko, yeah. They're all very unique ladies, but they all have big old racks, which Effinger is quick to point out.
Yes. Yes. Very notably large, apparently.
Absurdly. Pretty much people in the book say how ridiculous their racks are. They're fake racks.
Go ahead.
But yes, Tamiko is Nikki's roommate.
Yes, and the current girlfriend of Nikki, or at least it's implied that that's the case. So yeah, he gets the shit beaten out of him by Tamiko and her friends, the Black Widow sisters, Salima and Devi. And then And then Abdulier and Hassan basically say, you owe us $3,000. So he scrapes up.
Nikki skated out on her deal to pay back Abdulier, whatever you call him.
Yeah. So he scrapes up $2,500 to pay Abdulier, and says, "Okay, I'll get you." Basically gets run for the VIG, and says, "I'll pay you $1,500 tomorrow."
Yeah. Which is a really good way of kind of explaining how business works in the Budayeen. In fact, one of the main saying that happens over and over again in the book is, what is it? Business is business.
Business is business.
And then the person responds.
Action is action.
Action
Yeah.
is action. Yeah. It's all everything. Every relationship in this book is transactional. Like even like Marid and Yasmin, who are ostensibly in love, their relationship is transactional. Everything is transactional.
Yes, it's all moderated by business is business and action is action.
Right.
So then he ends up, after he pays the $2,500, which is basically all the money he has, and says he'll pay $1,500 the next day. He runs into Yasmin, gets a letter from Nikki with all the money that she owed Abdulier. And this letter says, because of some awkward circumstances, I've left and I'm with this German businessman outside the city. He knew me when I was just a fat, shy young boy. So on and so forth. Here's the money to pay Abdulier, and so on and so forth. So he ends up paying Abdulier, and gets a receipt, which turns out to be important later.
Yeah, smart move.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and honestly, it's a smart move pretty much all the time.
It really is. I got a file folder of receipts here that I'm always wondering, like, why do I keep all these fucking things? For pretty much anything I do in my business, I keep a receipt for. And Marid justified everything I did in this book.
I'm the same way. Like literally tomorrow, a check will be showing up at my house because I kept a bunch of receipts.
Yeah,
that's the moral.
We'll get to why.
Yeah, moral of the story: keep receipts, people.
Yeah, keep them. Smart. Insist that they write them, even if you have to get a third party to hold the gun while you make the transfer or whatever the fuck.
100% agreed. So he pays the Bullier, gets a receipt, and then he goes over to Tommy and Selena's house to explain what happened. And also find out why the fuck they were beating the shit out of him. And it turns out they're both dead.
They're both dead?
Yeah. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Selena's
not dead, though.
No. Devi is alive.
Okay. Continue.
So one is tortured with cigarette burns and cut and stuff like that. A lot of very unpleasant shit. And I think it was Tammy is killed with one bullet to the head.
I think you have that backwards. I think Tammy was tortured and...
Oh, okay.
And the other one was just one bullet to the head.
Okay. I very well could be wrong. So then the remaining Black Widow sister, Devi, asked Marid to investigate the letter from Nikki, which...
Selena is the remaining Black Widow sister. She was the final one, I'm pretty sure.
Really? Okay.
Pretty sure.
Okay. Let me skim forward in my notes.
Mike, do you want to back me up? Am I wrong? I'm pretty sure Selena was the last Black Widow sister, too. I think Devi was the second one killed. Tamika was first, then Devi, then Selena.
Okay, let me look at my notes in the book proper. Sorry, it's waking up.
It doesn't really matter.
That's also true. Fuck off. This is very interesting for the listeners.
The silence is fine because
sure.
it will be automatically edited out by the silence editor.
Yeah, I think Salim was the
great.
last one.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Victory. I'm so fucking good. I'm so smart.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So, anyway, Marid is asked to investigate what the fuck happened to Nikki because the letter they got, both Marid and the Black Widow sisters, is not the type of message that Nikki would send.
Yeah, she wasn't a shy fat boy. She was a very outgoing fat boy.
Yeah. And it leads him to a German on the edge of town named Seipold. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Seipold.
Yeah. Who he takes a fun taxi ride with his buddy Bill.
Okay, don't gloss over Bill, man. Bill.
I'm not
Bill's
going
my
to
hero,
gloss
man.
over Bill.
Okay.
Yeah, he's great. I was just doing an understatement intro.
Okay, good.
Bill rules. He's had a lung replaced with a tank full of PCP.
Yeah, basically. Crazy, better than acid.
Very much a entering oneness with the universe.
I also feel like
scenario.
we have downplayed how many drugs Marid has taken up to this point.
Oh yeah,
Marida's constantly taking drugs.
Assume that literally every scene where he's doing something, Marid is taking some sort of drugs, either like painkillers, uppers, something. He's constantly.
He wakes up in the morning and figures out what drugs he needs to take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And takes them.
So yeah. Then he takes them and then spends the next 12 hours trying to figure out how to get the money to take drugs the next day to counteract the drugs he took that day.
Yep.
That's true.
So he hooks up with his taxi driver friend Bill.
Bill doesn't have that problem because Bill has a tank of drugs in his lung.
Yes.
Which is like, honestly, when you think about it, the only non-brain implant that really is mentioned in the book.
It really is. I mean, other than, like I said in the previous episode, either like what we would consider today plastic surgery or sex change or gender affirmation surgery. That's the only thing that comes up in terms of like modifications.
Bill's acid tank.
Yeah. Yeah, there aren't so much as fucking hand raisers.
No, there aren't.
So Bill's on acid, or PCP.
Acid plus.
Yeah, he's
acid plus.
Yeah, Bill's undergoing ego death basically every second of every day. So good for him. That's probably a smart way to survive.
As a character, I love it. In reality, I'm like, why would anybody ever do this? And then choose taxi driver as their profession.
At the same time, I'm like, why would anybody not choose this? If this was
valid.
If this was an option, like if I could just entirely disassociate, why not?
You're right. I stand corrected. I'm 100% in agreement.
Yeah. So he goes out to this rich German's plantation. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Estate on the edge of the city. Which one of the things that it's a later visit to this place that reminds me of it, but it makes me think of the palm trees growing in Dune.
Yeah.
Where it's very much a matter of each of these trees is worth 40 men a day.
Right.
So he goes out and finds out that, according to this German guy who just met him for effectively no reason. No, I've never heard of a Nikki. I don't know. They were just pulling your leg. I'm not sexually attracted to anything these days. And okay, take off.
But
right?
Strangely, there's a ring in his collection of antiquities that Marid recognizes as belonging to Nikki.
Yes, that is correct. So he heads back to town, and then just kind of hangs out with some friends. The Half Hajj, who we mentioned previously.
Is this when Ramadan starts?
Yes, pretty soon. Yeah.
In my brain, if we had done like our usual thing where we do like a full deep recap, I figured we'd cut it like kind of in during
that
Ramadan.
makes sense. Okay.
But we're obviously not doing that. But I liked their interpretation of Ramadan.
Yeah. Given that you're given that you live with somebody who might give the slightest shit about Ramadan, it's very. I don't want to ever pretend to speak for Muslims, but in my experience, it's Effenger's portrayal of it was pretty accurate. Put it that way.
Yeah.
It's a fun time. Like there's a lot of sacrifice that happens, and then there's a lot of celebration.
Yeah. Honestly, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
He hangs out with some buddies.
Actually, Ramadan, this is a good point for me. The way Islam is presented in this text, I tried to explain this to my wife, who was raised Muslim. It's comforting to me in a way that Christianity that I've grown up with has never been.
I was actually going to ask if your wife had read this.
She has not. I should see if she would want to. It's not really her style, but I would like to get her take on it.
Yeah.
I feel like he approached Islam from a place of respect. God, and I once again, I'm not Muslim. I'm white and I'm atheist, so I'm not really the person to talk about it. But it made me, and I read this I don't remember when you recommended this to me. It's probably 20 years ago, the first time I read it. But it's preferable to the Christian outlook that I was raised under. You know what I'm saying?
It takes a very reasonable and even-handed approach to it, especially if, I think I recommended this to you, or I think you read this when we lived together.
Yeah.
So it would have been, as noted on our previous show, post 9/11. So it was very much Islamicists are destroying the world and terrorism and etc. And this is a very much
not that.
Islam is a workaday religion.
Yeah,
it's
there's no focus on like you're going to burn in hell. There's none of the fire and brimstone of Christianity that I was raised with. It's a lot, even a lot of the and like Mike said, a lot of the customs and stuff that are portrayed in this are kind of amped up to like the most extreme degree. But all of it was very comforting to me, having it narrated to me as an audiobook. Like when Marid eventually goes to meet Friedlander Bay and how they make tea and they go through all these pleasantries before they get to business and everything.
45 minutes of saying, "How are you?"
Right.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I felt there was care. Obviously, the writer's not Muslim. I feel like he tried to take care in showing this world.
Yeah, I read this book especially, and I have trouble remembering, 30 years ago when I first read it. But I read this very much as like, oh, this is somebody who gave a shit and considered this like, okay, this is different than how I was raised, but this is written by somebody who realizes that people actually believe this, and this is how they live. Which is a very anthropological way of thinking about things, whether or not it's, whether or not you're going to get into the analysis of it. It's we have to just accept that this is how people live.
Right.
And it seems to work for them one way or the other. Mike, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I thought it was actually pretty well done at the time. I was, and now, I mean, again, I'm definitely out of a Christian background. But from my experience, probably over the last 15 years or so, 20 years, more than half of my graduate students have been Muslim. Mm-hmm. So it's been
that's interesting.
And no, I mean it is one of the things, right, that depending on where people are from, right? If they grew up in North America, it's totally different.
Oh,
yeah. The whole thing of your graduate student coming in and you having 5 minutes of conversation where you're asking about each other's families before they ask the question about their dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
That's like totally normal to me, right?
Yeah. I had not connected that, but yeah, it is absolutely a thing. We've, like I said, there's an Algerian professor in anthropology where I went to school, and it's very much there's a lot of figuring out connections. And I think to some degree, academia, like all of academia, operates very much the same way.
The same way. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So your advisor was the student of blah, 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 who was the student of blah, 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 who's related to blah, blah, blah. And, it goes on, and you figure out kind of where your theoretical leanings lie. And yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
This is a super interesting and weird book to cover. I don't know. I fucking loved listening to it, but there's so much happening for a couple of white dudes to talk about.
I know. It's I feel like Mike is absolutely the best we could do as far as guests go. At the same time, I wish we could have Mike, and also, I don't know.
Somebody from Egypt.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know any trans people from Egypt.
Yeah,
off the top of my head.
We could have a transgender Muslim person. That would be nice if you could hit us up.
Yeah, I would love to hear thoughts. Unfortunately, we're very boring white guys.
I don't know what to think about it in that regard, because representation is important, and it's nice to see Islam represented with such care, but it is not an Islamic author. And it's not a transgendered author. It's not even an LGBTQ author at all.
At all.
Is it his place to write this stuff? Who fucking knows? At least somebody wrote it. I just don't even know.
Yeah,
where to go? And then you got us three dickheads talking about it. So I don't.
Yeah, but I think that the author did. I think Effinger did the right thing, right? Which is that he talked to drag queens.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
In the quarter,
and Muslims. Yeah.
Right, and then he talked to Muslims, right, and then he talked to Arabic speakers, right. I mean, he did his homework, right, in 1986.
Right.
That also adds a completely fun wrinkle.
It does. Which is why, man, I really hope our listeners have read this book or will read this book and take it for what it is, and try not to be upset at the fact that it's 40 years old and some of the stuff is outdated at this point. But
yeah, I mean, actually, as a queer guy, what I'd like to say is, you read this, and when you read something, you go, boy, nobody would say that now, and you can just kind of go, yeah, thank God, right?
That's right, yeah. As a non-queer guy, I read the book the same fucking way. Like, the transsexual talk. I'm reasonably read into the woke agenda.
You son of a bitch.
And I mean, it's a matter of like, oh, literally no one would say like transsexual is like a crazy word to say today. But
right
40 years ago, like that was absolutely the best goddamn language we had. I mean, you know, it's very much, and I'm putting this together on the fly. Don't boycott me.
Cancel.
It's very much a matter of like somebody saying like Afro-American in 1970.
Cancel Ace_Collins on X.
Yeah. There's a lot of Afro-American or something like that in 1970 or colored in 1960.
I was listening to this book thinking, oh man, this is going to be hard to cover for us. And it is. Well, we've got 40 minutes to do the rest of it, so we should probably...
Good cover. Okay. So he goes out and hangs out with his friends, one of whom, Saeed, I think, ends up knifing a pimp. Because
wait. Let's at least talk about his friends. He's got who are his 4 friends that he hangs out with all the time? Remember them all?
There's Saeed, who is the half Hajj.
He's the one that really only matters in the long run. But do you remember his other 2 friends?
Shit.
Fode?
Yeah.
That wasn't really one of the friends. That was
no, but he's around. He's a hanger-on.
Yeah. I do not remember the other names off the top of my head.
I don't either. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Good job.
But the point is, when he's describing them, he's describing them all, and they're all somewhere. They're LGBT or Q.
Yeah, they're somewhere on the spectrum, different spectrum.
Yep.
But Saeed the half Hodge, is the one that's important.
Yeah, he has a pretty aggressive mod chip in, and he ends up knifing a pimp in Cherry's bar, and then Marid gets picked up, and like by the cops.
By the cops.
By Hajar, the coolest cop.
By Hajar, the coolest and worst cop.
Hajar,
who is in fact a bastard.
Maybe my favorite character. I don't know.
Bastard, absolutely true.
There's so many bastards in this book.
Well, he is very specifically a bastard.
Yeah, I mean, and Hajar shows up more in the next book too. So,
yeah,
I'm very excited for that episode.
So he gets taken by Hajar.
Wait, real quick, because I know by the end of this book, Hajar, who is a piece of shit throughout this entire book, and
complete piece of shit.
You shouldn't emulate him or respect him in any way. He benefits from the events of the book and ends up actually in quite a better position.
Everything goes okay for Hajar.
Hajar does okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
In any story, it's my favorite kind of character. The bad guy that just does bad and succeeds for it.
Yeah, just kind of skates by being a piece of shit.
Yeah. They're the best, dude.
So Marid gets picked up and delivered to an empty hotel on the edge of town by Hajar.
Yeah.
Where he gets to meet the renowned Friedlander Bey, also known as Papa.
Friedlander Bey is such a good antagonist in this story. Like, he's so imposing, but yet I don't know, almost like fatherly,
regal
and
charming. Yeah,
charming
and scary,
comforting yet scary. Like, man, I love the way they describe Friedlander Bey. Who would play Friedlander Bey in a movie?
Oh, I have no idea.
I know it's a lot to think about, but he's such a great character, honestly.
Somebody who has the vibe, but obviously not the ethnicity. Brian Cox.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
I could see Brian Cox doing that. Shit, I don't know. Anyway,
you have to find an Arab, obviously.
Yeah,
but just fantastic antagonist.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, he's not an antagonist?
No, I mean, you're right.
It's hard to say.
Whatever he is.
He is, but he isn't. Doesn't matter. Not important. Once we get into the moral gray areas of this novel, who antagonist, protagonist, who cares? Yeah. So he's about to be tortured to death by Friedlander Bay.
Because Friedlander Bay thinks he's responsible for all the murders of the Black Widow sisters and the Russian and all the others.
And Abdullah.
Who has been killed at this point.
Who is the important thing in this instance.
Yeah.
Because Abdullah worked for Friedlander Bay, even in a divorced sense.
As did the Black Widow sisters.
Also true. So he ends up barely scraping out of it by saying, "No, I got this receipt.
Check out my fucking receipts, bro."
And getting alibied up by Hassan. And then over the course of a conversation, as you know, because this wasn't a this wasn't a James Elroy end of Big Nowhere get sent to an empty hotel to be tortured and killed scenario.
That's a very specific reference you're making.
It was, but Mike will get it.
I got it too.
Got it.
Yeah,
I don't know how many of our listeners will.
Yeah. This is not a you walk in the door and you're immediately pistol whipped and tied to a chair. This is we're going to have a pleasant cup of tea and then we're maybe going to torture you, assuming you don't confess immediately.
Yeah, it's another thing we should point out about Marid, who, it's been established he's a hustler. He's kind of a con man. He's kind of a detective. He kind of has everything. But man, his street etiquette is like somewhere around a 10 or 12. Like
he is a bullshitter.
He knows
in
how
a
to
perfect
impress
way.
The like hardcore Muslims. He knows how to impress the street people. He knows how to impress the cops. He knows how to talk to these people. So when he meets with Friedlander Bay, he does everything that's necessary to make Friedlander Bay impressed.
Yes.
Not that it's going to stop him from getting his shoulders crushed by his giant sandstone people.
Yes.
The stone that speaks.
The stone that speaks. So over the course of this, it turns out that he didn't kill Abdullah or these other people. And he kind of puts a bug in the ear of Friedlander Bay about how maybe all 4 murders are connected. It doesn't really think anything of it. He's more just relieved to be freed and let go. So the next day, after he's, spent a night basically finished hyperventilating after the interrogation / meeting, he gets an invitation to Bay's, and Bay has come around on the connection between the murders, that there's both somebody who's torturing people and shooting people in the head with a Walther PPK, and hires Marid to investigate. But, to do a really good job of the investigating, Marid really should be wired. So he has the absolute best possible odds.
And by really should be, we mean you
is ordered to, or you will die.
Yeah. You have no choice in this matter. You are getting wired, Mr. Audran.
Yeah.
Audran.
So that he has the best chance of solving these murders. On the upside, he's got like 3 days before the appointment. So that's cool.
I loved that, how Friedlander put that to him. Also, I think this is pretty cyberpunk. Like, this is Marid Audran. Like, he never wanted to be wired. And this is the point where he comes out and straight up says, I was afraid to. Like, I'm afraid to put these wires in my head. It's not just an ego thing. I'm scared.
Yeah. This made me very specifically think of the line from Existenz that I have a phobia of being penetrated. surgically. Did you watch Existence, Mike?
Oh, no. It's a Canadian classic. Of course, I've seen it.
Yeah, I'm sure you had seen it, obviously, because Cronenberg,
Canadian classic. Yeah,
the major Canadian filmmaker off the top of my head, other than like maybe Sarah Polley these days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you rewatch it for our episode 3 weeks ago or whenever?
No, I confess not. But yeah,
you were fine. You were okay.
Yeah, I was okay.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I saw that movie in 1999 or whenever it came out, and I was like, good enough. And then 2023 rolls around, and here I am.
Yep.
Okay. I saw it for the first time a couple weeks ago.
And it was hot.
Still horny.
Yes. Marid basically needs to... he takes a weekend to decide if he wants to run out to the desert and fuck sheep. Or submit to the surgery. Goes out drinking with his buddies that night. Runs into the James Bond guy again. And gets fucking rolled.
Yeah, yep. James Bond is not a pushover, as it turns out.
Yeah, he follows James Bond into an alley and gets, just the fucking shit beaten out of him. And then we hit the 50% portion of the books.
Oh my God. We have 30 minutes left before this cuts us off.
So, the next day, he finds Nikki's body in a trash can with the ring that had previously been spotted at Sepult's house.
Yeah, and yes, Mean points him to it, which is kind of sad.
Yeah. A Mahdi, which is weird and black market, and a scarab, which Marid had also seen at Sepult. Because Sepult had a, just cool, generic, like, oh, we're going for Arabic bullshit collections.
Right. Sepult was kind of a fucker.
Yeah. And then he goes into the hospital, spends the next fucking 3 weeks there.
He loves it, by the way. He fucking loves being in the hospital.
Huge fan of the hospital. Understandably, he's got
many drugs available at a call.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Friedlander Bay is paying the bill.
Yep.
And Marid is a man who is built to be waited on.
Yes. I really like his doctor, and then there's a nurse that like really fucking hates him because they're like, you could, this care could be going to somebody who deserves it.
Yeah, I can't remember the doctor's name, but he is a Turk,
the Turkish doctor.
Yeah. Who is fucking great and pops up multiple times through the rest of the book.
Yeah.
This is one part where I thought was really reminded me of the Shadowrun rules as written, where, you're spending 3 weeks in the hospital to get this stuff put in.
Yeah, it's very Shadowrun. Like, if you want to get cyberware upgrades, you gotta fucking spend a month in the hospital. That's the way it is. It's invasive surgery.
Yeah, and the doctor is not a dervish.
Is he Sufi?
Yes, he's a Sufi. Remember. Yeah, he is a Sufi Muslim, which is a slightly different flavor than most of the Muslims we run into in the book, and has a slightly different philosophy because of that. He seems mostly dedicated to you gotta really just try and do the most for the most people and try not to do evil. Which maybe Marid takes advice Marid takes or doesn't take. Finally, he gets out of the hospital. Oh yeah, he gets no mods. But he does get daddies that will take care of hunger, pain, exhaustion, thirst, stuff like that. And also this one that'll make him like into a crazy fucking rabbit animal. But that's not important. It definitely won't come up later in the book. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we can call it Chekhov's daddy.
Yeah,
he gets Mahdi's too, though. Like, at least he gets the ability to take Mahdi's.
Yeah, he gets the ability to take them, but he doesn't get any coming out of the hospital.
And I feel like this is where like all these daddies he can take are pretty much taking the place of cyberware in a traditional cyberpunk story.
Sure.
Like they can make him stronger, they can make him avoid hunger or pain or whatever. I mean, they're in Shadowrun. They take the place of a lot of BioWare. Like it's basically pretty standard cyberpunk shit.
Yeah. So yeah, he gets out of the hospital, and has had some kind of rehab walkthrough with that stuff. Has a rendezvous with Hawking, and it turns out that just basically as soon as he got out of the hospital, Salima was slaughtered in a fancy hotel room.
Yeah, Salima. See, your notes were correct. Salima is the last Black Widow sister to die. Thank you for admitting I'm right, motherfucker.
I'm going to admit that Mike was right instead, just for fun,
bitch.
And at Salima's murder scene, there is you next, Audran.
Yeah,
the mirror in blood.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, it's not great. So he goes to a creepy and frightening.
Hey, you know what's weird? I'm all these points in the story you're telling me. I'm like remembering as various rest stops along I-35 as I was traveling back to Dallas listening to the audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
Is that weird?
No, it's not weird at all. You should be about reaching Belle Plaine right now.
Somewhere in Oklahoma for sure.
Oh, okay. So you might be just getting into Oklahoma City. Just like right on the south edge. Yeah, I know that stop. So he goes to a Maud and Daddy seller who has previously been addressed. She's a frightening old woman who is a witch.
We love her. I feel like we're rushing through this, but every character Effinger introduces is lovingly
very
portrayed.
well drawn. Yes. He gets a Nero Wolfe chip. Eric, have you ever read a Nero Wolfe novel?
I have not.
I'm not surprised. He is not in style for the past 50 years-ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many of them do you think that I have read?
Oh, I don't know. Could be fucking 30 for all I know, or 0.
I've read all of them.
I believe it. I very well might have read all of them. If not, I've read a shockingly high percentage. They're very good.
Are they really good? Like, would you recommend reading them?
In terms of mid-century mystery novels, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Was this book accurate in portraying like what Nero Wolfe is?
Pretty. Yeah, very much.
Yeah,
because to me, it could have been completely fucking made up. Like I've never heard of the guy.
Yeah, I guess that's. Yeah, he really didn't have a huge life. Like I could have easily seen Nero Wolfe being picked up like by A&E or something or the BBC as a huge series, and I don't know that it ever happened. Was it?
It was on A&E, like in 2000.
Okay.
Intrigued.
The Nero Wolfe books are
worth looking at. There's my recommendo.
Yeah, they're very good for fucking mid-century mystery books.
Okay.
They're not hard-boiled in any way. They're much more
Agatha Christie.
Yes. They're much more in the whodunit mindset.
They're more Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
They're very good. Nero Wolfe is a really well-drawn character, as is Archie Goodwin, who is his faithful man.
I assumed all this, but I had literally heard of none of it at all outside of this story.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they're very good. So he gets a Mahdi for a famous detective.
And this is Marid's first time inserting a Mahdi, so it's a big deal.
And it's like, hey, this seems cool. He also, and I had totally forgotten the Nero Wolf thing. Like when I read this book this time, I was like, "Oh, Nero Wolf, shit!" I had just completely glossed over that in my memory. So he buys that, and then the Archie Goodwin chip, Archie Goodwin is Nero Wolf's sidekick, from the Mahdi cellar, and then says, "Hey, by the way, this thing I got out of Nikki's corpse, what's up with this?" And it turns out there are 3 bands to it, like 3 separate tracks all on the same tape. And the Mahdi cellar is like, "Oh, let me see," and jacks it and turns into a crazy fucking wild animal.
Yeah, the poor old lady.
Yeah. Some sort of tortured large cat in a cage. Let's see. One of the others is an infant being tortured. And the third one is a woman being, like, tortured to death. So that's cool and normal and great.
Good times.
Yeah, it's fun. It's an entirely sadistic concept. The serial killer jacked Nikki and however other victims into this horrible fucking thing where it's just torture and nightmares, and then killed them. So good times. So I feel like that's a downer. She goes to the hospital. So that's good. He jacks the Nero chip and does some thinking because Nero Wolf, as a detective, spends all his time in his house.
Nero Wolf is a recluse.
Yes. Spends all his time in his brownstone, and sends his buddy Archie Goodwin to do his errands.
So this is all real.
Yeah, very much.
Like I'm interested.
Yeah. There are a couple of spots where Nero leaves his place, but not very often.
And Marid thinks the perfect Archie Goodwin, my BFF, the Half Hodge.
Yes, Saeed the Half Hodge. And Saeed is like, "Fuck you, bro."
Saeed comes, and Saeed loves Mahdi's. Like he's pretty much always on a Mahdi, and he chips the Arthur Mahdi in his head, and he's like, "Wait a minute, you're using me, motherfucker." Archie, yeah. That's kind of a dick move.
So I go out and get beat up because you thought of something? Fuck off.
And Marid's like, "Yeah, but you get to beat people's asses." And he's like, "Fuck you. I don't give a shit. I'm out of here."
You're also forgetting his main objection to jacking in as Archie.
Oh, he's
Archie
lady crazy.
Milk. No.
Yes. Yes, that's also true.
Saeed the Half Hodge, like, we're not paying him respect, but he's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, he's very good. Another very well-drawn character. So Marid is upset and annoyed at that. Ends up meeting with Hawking. Basically doesn't have any progress to report since he got out.
I feel like we've also glossed over how fucking horny Yasmin was at the idea that Marid was wired now. Like,
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
she was down to clown with any possible chips he could do.
We also have not even begun to mention how Chiri was down to clown with the Honey Pilar mod that she had in like the page 5.
Honey Pilar is like a top tier porn star that everybody knew about, and you could assume her personality. And Chiri was going to use it for Marid. Like there's a whole bunch of horny shit going on under the scenes that we haven't really got too deep into. It's not super important to the story, but it's there. Like there's a lot of horny shit happening.
Yeah, it kind of runs under the surface all through it, right? Because they're in the red light district.
Yeah. There's a lot of fucking happening.
Yeah. People be fucking.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so then there's another conflict with Yasmin because he's too concentrating on the job for Bay, etc., and the fact that Nikki is his ex-girlfriend is throwing some wrenches into the works, whatever. He then gets a note under his fucking door that says that James Bond is gone. And now it'll be a totally different thing. So that's threatening because now the killer knows where knows who Marid is and knows where he lives.
Mm-hmm.
He runs back to Hawking. I think this is the point at which he spends a bunch of time examining police files, which might as well be a file cabinet on the computer.
And he learns that Hawking is basically a ghost in the police files.
He finds out that Hawking has no record, and that this is the point at which we hit a stumbling block in terms of recapping this book, because there is a psychotically large plot dump. Hawking was hired by somebody to hire somebody else to disrupt an assassination attempt on a, quote, foreign prince.
Yeah.
Which was the James Bond person, okay? Mm-hmm. James Bond was not the foreign prince, but the person who was... it's very complicated.
No, you're killing it. The person... They used a James Bond Mahdi to allow them to be a better assassin of this foreign prince.
Well, okay. So then the person who used this Mahdi, because as we established, they are no longer using James Bond, has gone, in offensive terminology, off the reservation. I don't know of, I can't think of any other way to,
off the rails?
Off the rails. That's a good one. Okay, I'll store that in my memory.
That's offensive.
Has gone off the rails and has experienced what's called mission creep, and is now trying to kill everybody who knows anything about anything.
And I feel like it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's this individual who is enjoying their work too much. Maybe it's a side effect of overuse of Mahdi's. I don't know. It's not really ever implied one way or another. But clearly, the people who are most using Mahdi's in this story are the most fucked up people.
Yeah.
Like when you think about the bad guys at the end of the story, they're the ones that are overusing the Mahdi's.
Yeah. So it turns out that Hawking has also been threatened directly by the James Bond person.
And Hawking is fucking terrified.
Yes. And it turns out that Sapult was the person who hired him to disrupt the assassination. Because
this is so confusing the way we're presenting it.
It's not. The thing is, it's not important. Okay.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Like many, or like the best, in my mind, like the best hard-boiled mystery novels, the actual mystery is not important.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Mike?
Yeah. When I got this, never bothered me because one of my favorite books.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Is The Big Sleep.
Yeah,
right?
It doesn't bug me at all. Nobody. Who knows who cared? Who knows who killed the chauffeur?
Who killed the chauffeur?
I've never seen The Big Sleep. I watched The Big Sleep.
Yeah, Raymond Chandler had no fucking idea.
I don't know.
Seemed like we needed a murder. Yeah.
I mean, that was the.
It's not important.
The inciting incident, the inciting murder in The Big Sleep, you never actually solve.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. The important thing is the way the characters interact around the inciting incident.
This fucking episode has been a mess.
I'm sure it has, but...
I'm very proud of it.
But if you're 9,000 miles deep into context, and mid-century mystery novels, you'll get it.
I think if the poor bastards like listening to us on YouTube and they're like, I could get this is about cyberpunk, and then they're listening to
hey,
this.
I really liked that video game.
Well, we're about like 4 hours deep into a cyberpunk adjacent novel that came out in 1980. I don't know, man. Whatever.
I don't disagree.
This is why we're doing this, I guess, is the whole point.
So yeah, then I put a note. Okay, so Hawking was threatened. Sepult hired him to disrupt the assassination, and oh yeah, Nikki was the foreign prince.
Yeah, that's an important fact that I feel like you're about to gloss over.
No, I just laid it out.
Nikki, who was graphically graphically sexually described as being extremely attractive, extremely feminine, even though obviously, a not born woman.
She was trans woman.
It turns out that she was this foreign prince the whole time.
Yeah, who could inherit the throne of, I don't know, some splinter of Greater Russia.
Some Ukrainian.
It doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, Belarus.
Belarus.
Yeah, the goddamn White Russians. Who cares?
It's true.
It honestly doesn't matter.
Nothing happening outside of the Budayeen really matters.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, something that I maybe mentioned in the first episode was that, like, even though we might, like, the Budayeen might be on the edge of this, some sort of insane high-tech city with skyscrapers and fucking neon, it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with the story.
It's just the fucking low life part of the high-tech low life.
Yes, exactly. So then we begin the real third act after we've figured out that, turns out that Nikki was the prince that was promised. And it's all fucking DJ crazy times here. Cyber systems overload, whatever.
What? DJ crazy times?
Yeah. Have you not been online in the past 3 weeks, man?
About to go, man. Come on.
Okay, so basically, the person got rid of the James Bond thing, picked up a Genghis Khan, who is a fictional serial killer in Central Asia, Mahdi, who just does horrible fucking things.
It wasn't fictional. It was a real person. It was a real serial killer from their history.
Oh, yes, from their history, fictional person in our, like, this was a
right.
Yes, sorry,
fictional to us, real to them.
Yeah, that's an important. That is an important thing that I failed to note. Yeah, somebody who had a messiah complex and just fucking knifed the hell out of sex workers. Then I really don't want to get into the last quarter of the book. Because that's what we're going to get into it. The mysteries are all solved. How about that? As far as
let's simplify it. Marid, first of all, he realizes he has to go to ground, so he sells his apartment, he leaves his apartment.
Yep.
And he kind of changes his identity. He shaves his beard. He cuts his hair. He gets some expensive clothes, and then he gets some less expensive clothes. And then he goes and he finds
a rando's house.
He finds a rando's house in a slum, and he's like, "Hey, let me rent a room in your hovel. Here's like $100."
Which is an important aspect of he follows the rules of an important aspect of Muslim culture.
Right. There's some other stuff that happens, like he goes back to the German's house and he meets like one of the German's girls.
Yeah.
Who and there's some other shit that goes down, but the important thing is he's renting a room in this rando poor guy's hovel, and then as he's leaving, a stranger approaches him on the street.
Yes, as he's leaving and heading down a dead-end alley.
Right. And
like an asshole.
The stranger is like, hey, I've got some daddies for sale. You interested in these daddies? Mm-hmm. And Marid's like, I'm not really interested in anything right now. Could you fuck off? And then the guy pops in a chip, and it turns out this is Khan. This is the crazy serial killer. This is the guy he's been looking for. And he's here to kill Marid.
Okay.
Have I simplified it enough? Is that
sure? Marid ends up killing him. Gets out of the hospital like 3 weeks after that.
It's a pretty good fight. Like Marid has to pop daddies that he hasn't wanted to use. He's had to use some of this technology that Friedlander Bay gave him that he wasn't fully on board with, and he barely fucking survives this fight with this Khan Mahdi. But he subdues him. Ockings shows up. Like Ockings been afraid of this guy, so Ockings like, dude, you're a fucking hero. And then he goes back to the Budayeen, and everybody's like, Marid, man, you fucking did it. You found the serial killer that's been haunting us. Like, you're the fucking man.
First, he spends like another 3 weeks in the hospital.
Oh yeah, because he got super fucked up. But everybody is like, Marid, you are the man.
You solved all these murders.
You are the fucking top. You're king shit of fuck mountain. And Marid's like, but I think there's another guy.
I think there's another fucking killer out there.
I'm pretty sure there's another guy. And everybody's like, there's no other guy, dude. You're done. And even Friedlander Bay's like, dude, this looks pretty wrapped up to me. Like, you're pretty much fucking done, Marid. And he's like, no, pretty sure there's another guy.
Uh-huh.
And Friedlander Bay's like, but Jihad. I mean, he does say that. He's like very straight up says like,
true.
All the Europeans and Americans are falling apart, and this is our chance. And fucking like, let's take advantage of it.
Sure.
And but Marid is insistent. There's another fucking guy, and I gotta find who it is, because the people who killed all these other dudes are not the same as the people who killed Nikki. The person who killed Nikki was like a short guy with fat fingers.
Yes.
And who do I know that's a short guy with fat fingers that likes to kill people and has a penchant for young American boys?
And who has been feeding me all the information to and from Bay?
Exactly. Who is my go-between between me and Friedlander Bay this whole goddamn time? Could it possibly be Hassan the Shiite?
No. And then the book ends.
I don't believe the book ends there. No.
Oh, I think I must have gotten a corrupted copy on my ebook.
Because as it turns out, Marid heads to Mr. Hassan, to his little crime lab in the center of the Budayeen, and he talks to the little American boy who has
Abdul Hassan,
who has been such a fan of his throughout this whole thing. Wheedles his way into Hassan's inner sanctum and finds Hassan in the midst of some nefarious shit with Mr. Detective Ocking, like tied to a table in a
burned by cigarettes,
in a very awkward position.
Yeah, he's been chained up and tortured, like a number of the victims have been, very, very, very similarly.
At which point, Hassan the Shiite begins to unravel his tale of woe, as he is, in fact, the second killer.
Yes.
Which, was he hired by the Germans or the Russians? I'm not sure.
No, he was hired by the Belarusians.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. The geopolitics of this book are confusing.
The European shit is really fucking boring and doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's not important. It takes place outside of the Budayeen.
Right. The Budayeen is what matters.
So, it's not great. Hassan's a lunatic. And then Marid goes crazy.
Yep. Well, at this point, Marid decides to insert the daddy.
Yes, Chekhov's daddy.
Chekhov's daddy, yeah.
Which sounds sexier than it actually is.
Yeah, and he kind of goes in ape shit. Not in a cool way.
No, slaughters Hassan and incidentally, Lieutenant Ocking.
I guess we haven't like Hassan was literally in the middle of all this shit from the beginning.
From the first minute.
Yeah,
I loved Hassan. I was actually
Street.
When I was reminded that Hassan was the bad guy, I was like, "Oh man, that sucks." I really liked the Hassan character.
Yeah, it was a really elegant version of Ebert's conservation of characters law. Roger Ebert, like 30 years ago, set out a thing called the law of conservation of characters, where if you see a character in the first, quarter of the movie, and then they sort of disappear for the middle section of the movie, and then they pop back up at the end for no reason, they're probably the killer. Because there are only so many characters you can have in a movie that are identifiable.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
And mystery novels work the same way, to some extent. Hassan, however, has a job through the entire thing. He is, he's relaying messages to and from Bay. There was honestly a point where, and it's been, I assume since I probably lent this to you, Eric, 20 years ago when we were living together. It's been that long since I read this book. I, in the middle of it, was thinking like, oh yeah, Bill disappears for a hot minute. Because there's a point where he can't find Bill.
Bill, the cab driver?
Yeah. He can't find Bill. He can't locate Bill. And I was thinking, wait, is Bill the villain? That doesn't sound right, but maybe it is, because that's my mind is always tuned to conservation of characters.
Right.
Bill disappears for some reason.
It's true. He does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hassan doesn't really disappear.
No, he doesn't. Nope. That's the thing. It's he is a really good subversion of the law of the conservation of characters. There are shitloads of characters in this fucking book who exist for no reason other than to exist, Bill.
I think it's interesting. I had read this book before I listened to it, within the last week, and I did not remember that Hassan was the second killer.
I had forgotten that Hassan was. Yeah.
He just kind of blends in. He does his job. He does his shit. And, he's definitely an interesting character, but he doesn't come across as a particularly bad guy.
Yeah, knowing that this is book one of 3.5 books, less than half, but whatever.
Wait, less than half?
Yeah, the last book, I can't remember what it's called. Effinger only finished a couple of chapters before he died. Yeah,
that's too bad.
Knowing that this is the first of 3 books, or theoretically a continuing series. It's totally reasonable to go, oh, Hassan's going to continue throughout, and then maybe at some point he'll end up trying to take over for Bay, or who knows. It's not important. He has a job narratively. It's not the job of, oh yeah, sex murdering.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, he gets, you gotta admit, the way it wraps up with Marid using the Black Daddy, I think is that what they call it? That he's got a specific daddy which unleashes the darkness within his soul and allows him to go full animal.
It stimulates the pain centers in his brain. So basically makes him a rabid animal and starts just attacking and attacking and attacking.
And he ends up killing Hassan, and unfortunately killing Aking as well, who was Hassan's prisoner / torture victim.
Mm-hmm. Then he goes back to the hospital for another number of weeks.
Downtime spent in hospitals.
That's one thing that reading this book this time, I really appreciated. There's a lot of hospital time. And then he gets out of the hospital and everybody hates his guts.
Yep.
Except for Friedlander Bay.
Yeah.
everybody's heard that he went too far and just turned into a crazy fucking animal and slaughtered Hassan and Ocking and just was fucking nuts and a worse lunatic than the killer or than the killers who had been stalking
everybody, even
before.
like Frenchie and Yasmin, and nobody is on Marid's side. It's sad.
Yeah, no drink here anymore.
Yeah. Frenchie, who would promise him free drinks for life after he'd killed the first guy's
James
Caan. Yeah.
Caan, yeah.
James Caan? How about that?
Jimmy Caan.
R.I.P. James Caan, we miss you.
Oh, we do. But Frenchie had promised him free drinks for life. And then after word got round that he'd kind of gone ape shit, he lost those free drinks for life, man.
Yeah, he did. But Bay pays him off real big and tells him he's got a new job interfacing with the police for the Budayeen. So he wins?
No, man, he doesn't win. It's a sad story because
he really doesn't win.
His whole big deal when he started interacting with Friedlander Bay was that he was
an independent.
Like individual. He was independent. He didn't.
Yep.
He wasn't. And Friedlander Bay was like, I recognize that you're independent. You're not going to be part of my organization. And then at the end of it, he's fucking a kept boy. It's sad.
It is.
But Friedlander Bay is a fucking pimp.
Okay.
You don't fuck with him.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I would like you to justify that statement.
What do you mean? Like, Friedlander Bay is the ultimate pimp, right?
Okay. Pimps don't commit suicide?
Sure. Whatever.
All right.
Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. I just thought that was odd phrasing in the moment and wanted to hear you justify it.
Friedlander Bay is not to be fucked with.
Sure.
And he's going to get his way.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Did I interrupt you?
No, just going to say that, I mean, this is the sort of the crux of it, right? Is that, there's a sense in which Marid, and this may be one of the reasons why the book doesn't survive as well as some of the others from the period, is that it is a tragedy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a happy.
No, it is really not. I mean, the reason
Bay totally, he's the Godfather. He wins.
He wins. He does. It's sad, but he does.
Yep. Even if Marid doesn't fully comprehend it, at the beginning of the book, Marid is independent because he is fucking nickel and dime small time bullshit.
I actually really fucking loved how at the very end how Marid, like, he throws away all pretense. He throws away all of the pomp and circumstance, all of the the tradition that he has spoken to Friedlander Bay, referring to him as uncle and like talking, all of that bullshit ceremony. He throws it away and he just yells at Friedlander Bay as a piece of shit, and he just calls him out. And Friedlander Bay is like completely doesn't give a shit. He's like,
why would he?
Whatever, man. This is the way things are going to be, and you are now a police officer. I don't give a shit what you think about that. It doesn't matter because this is your job now. And,
here, have an envelope of cash.
Here's some money.
The stone that talks will escort you out.
Fucking deal with it or die. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's so sad and frustrating.
Yeah.
As a reader.
That's probably a big part of why I like it.
Yeah, I agree. What an ending, though, man.
Yeah. I love this book. Highly recommend it to everybody. It's definitely
absolutely.
cyberpunk. I mean,
Agreed. I don't know what else we can say.
Yeah, we've talked a lot. We've talked for fucking 4.5 hours almost.
Yeah. We have.
And for me at least, we're into the next day. So.
Oh God, I am so sorry, Mike.
I'm very sorry, Mike, that we've held you on for this long amount of time. I had a feeling it would happen, though. I'm not going to lie.
Mike,
I'm not surprised.
I desperately want to have you back on for more shows, even if it's just for fucking Patreon bullshitting. Politics, what's cyberpunk, whatever.
Yeah. It's been very fun, Mike. You're an awesome guest. You have a lot of insight that us two idiot assholes don't have.
Yeah, and at the very least, you back me up against his idiocy.
No, I mean,
far smarter than I am.
No, this book has a lot of stuff that just really, works for me, right? The Raymond Chandler bit, which by the way, the thing is that info dump, right, by Ocking, right. Go back and again, I'll call it back. Go back and reread the Big Sleep, right?
Yeah.
The cop.
I have to read
the one
The Big
good
Sleep
cop.
for the first time.
Yeah.
The one cop does exactly that. Right. After they figured out, well, don't want to. Oh God, I don't want to explain the plot of The Big Sleep. But yeah, you get exactly the same kind of info dump, right? From the cop.
You're not wrong.
Should we do a Patreon Big Sleep episode?
I'd happily fucking watch The Big Sleep for this show.
Until then, please check us out on X at Johnny66. I am at the Frog with a Zero. Josh at Ace_Collins. Mike,
I am not on X. I am on Twitter at Ace_Collins.
Yeah, my God, I'm still on Twitter. I don't care.
I'm an X-Man myself. I don't know about you guys.
That's a weird accent for that.
I'm an X-Man.
And go to our Patreon, Patreon/Johnny60Seconds. High Tech Low Life.
High Tech Low Life.
Sorry.
And then Linktree, High Tech Low Life. If you would, if you feel like leaving us a voicemail, we have a speak pipe on there where you can do it via your computer. Linktree/High Tech Low Life. So thank you everybody for listening this long. This went longer than I expected, but I had a good time. Mike, thank you so much for being on our show. And hopefully we can do it again, maybe on the sequel to When Gravity Fails, which I've never read.
It will be great. Once Mike's got a what people outside academia call vacation coming up, which is definitely exactly a normal vacation. So we will definitely be doing the sequels to this book.
All right.
Hey everybody, Editor Eric here, just jumping in to let you know we decided next week we're going to be covering the movie Reminiscence. It's available streaming on Max, starring Hugh Jackman, Tandiwe Newton, and Rebecca Ferguson. So check that out if you want to hear what we have to say about it, spoiler free, because we're going to spoil the crap out of it. That's all.
Thank you everybody. Until then, I don't have a fucking quote, so I love you all. Goodbye.
I also love you, and I'm trying to bring up quotes on my Kindle, but it's going slow. Oh, how about this? I had avoided having my brain wired more out of profound dread than principle. The idea produced terror in me, amounting to an irrational, paralyzing phobia. And I have a phobia about being penetrated surgically.
Surgically.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been the High Tech Low Life podcast. Find us on Twitter at Johnny60Seconds. Email us at hightechlowlifepodcast@gmail.com. And find us on Patreon at patreon.com/hightechlowlife. Theme music provided by Nia Lore at nialore.com. Thank you for listening.
Excuse me, Robo, any special message for all the kids watching at home?
Stay out of trouble.
Something could have happened in the last week, too. You don't know.
Climate change?
That's not a good thing.
It's not great. I read a really unpleasant thing this morning about how some nice older people in Texas had an air conditioner repairman showed up as their bodies were being pulled out of the house because they died in the heat.
Thanks for that story, Josh. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, that's what you get when you ask for fucking 2 sets of dystopia talk in the same episode or in the same 3-hour period.
Please stop destroying the magic. This is a full week later.
Uh-huh.